Dr. Shangwe. So there is no specific question, it's just okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. So I am Khalifa Said. I am a journalist and editor with The Chanzo. The Chanzo is an online publication, a news media organization which publishes mainly digitally. And so I think Dr. Shangwe said a lot of things, and I'm trying to struggle to find an entry point, but maybe I can start by sharing with you what I have been thinking about since I got this invitation, this privilege to be here and share my perspective with you. And so I've been thinking, like, can we even talk about or discuss the idea of academic freedom or intellectual freedom, you know, whatever name that you prefer to use, if you live and operate in a context where there is no freedom to think? And I think that should be my entry point. Like, can we examine, can we look critically at where we live, where we do whatever we are doing? And I mean, in this country, for example, in this region, where thinking, and I don't even want to say critical thinking, to be honest. I just want to focus on just mere thinking, like, or maybe independently thinking a little bit, is not only not encouraged, but it's also very dangerous. It's very dangerous. I mean, and this is very personal to me, to be honest, because, and I'm getting emotional. Yeah, because we are sitting here right now at the university discussing these grand ideas and theories about academic freedom. But there are people out there who are still missing. There are people in this city, in this very town, who have gone missing, never to be found as we speak right now, for committing no other crime, for not committing any kind of crime apart from thinking. Yeah? And they were stupid enough, you know, to share their thinking with us, like coming to us and telling us that this is how I think things should go. This is how I think the government that taxes me on a daily basis should run its affairs. These, some of them, very young people, not even in their 30s, some in their early 20s, coming out and try to think and share their ideas, their opinions, and they are abducted. They are abducted. Huh? So how do you even start to discuss the notion of academic freedom? No, you cannot. You cannot, because there is no space. There is no space. And I actually thought again when I got this invitation, and I'm glad that Dr. Shangwe also touched on it, like, the collective response to these very, very dark forces that are hell-bent to take us to the dark ages, to respond to these practices of shutting down voices that make them uncomfortable. And so I was thinking, we are here in the university, at the University of Dar es Salaam. The bastion is supposed to be the bastion of intellectual, critical, independent thinking. And we are discussing the notion of academic freedom. But where is the support for people who are so daring to express their thinking openly and then they disappear? Where is the solidarity? How do we respond to these threats? And I think it comes down to what I say, labeling, because here we are very fond of labeling each other. No, he's an activist, he's a politician, and I'm an academic, I'm an intellectual. But where's the solidarity? So we are sitting here discussing academic freedom, intellectual freedom, and what's not, at the university, in a context where people who have suffered fatal consequences, life-changing consequences, continue to suffer these consequences while there is completely absence of solidarity or support to these people. And so I think I can stop at that point, by also inviting you to reflect on it a little bit. Like, can we even have this conversation in a context that we have now? And I cannot stop thinking about David Soka, a very, very young man, very visionary, ambitious. He didn't hurt anyone. He didn't commit any crime. He was just expressing himself, sharing his ideas on social media, through press conferences. He's still missing. He's still missing. Does he not matter? Doesn't it terrify you? It doesn't terrify you? Like someone so young can go missing for committing no other crime than expressing themselves? So to me, I think we should, narrowing down, or I think we should focus on the freedom to think. Are we allowed to think in this country where you have an artist, a hip-hop artist, just, expressing himself through art, commenting on what he thinks as a taxpayer doesn't go right, and he suffers consequences and harassment. Not only are radio and TV stations prohibited to play his songs, but also authorities on the ground stop him or prevent him from performing those songs on the ground. What kind of a country are we? What country are we? And so maybe, Dr. Shango, I can stop there, and another opportunity arises, I will delve on this further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Halifa, for very provoking opening remarks. Before I give the mic to the next speaker, I just want to emphasize that the reason we are discussing this, because we're not just talking about academic freedom, we're also talking about the social responsibility of academics. And your question about the silence that you have seen, the lack of collective action, it becomes, it's because of that lack of collective action, lack of social responsibility of academics and the intellectual community. So it's not just about academic freedom, but it's also about responsibility of academics. Aisha, you want to go first?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Aeshi Husseini Mashaka. I'm second year student studying political science and history. So I prefer to use Swahili in order to understand well. Kwenye nadharia ya uhuru wa kitaaluma, pamekuwa pana migogoro ya muda mrefu sana, ambayo migogoro hii imekuwa ikiendeshwa zaidi na tabaka tawala zidi ya watu ambao wanafikiri tofauti na tabaka hilo. Tunaweza tukaanzia kwa Halifa, jinsi ambavyo alivyojaribu kuelezea matukio yanavyoendelea na how the mamlaka yanavyo play role kuhakikisha kwamba katika pitch kunakuwa kuko silence. Lakini mimi zaidi nitaelezea katika role ambayo field niliyopo, field of universities. Huku ndio kwa unaweza kaongelea vizuri kuliko ni sehemu nyingine yoyote. Kuna kitu ambacho hakiendi sawa, naweza nikasema kwa mujibu wa kihistoria, ni tangu kwa anguka kwa azimio la Arusha, education yetu imepoteza ladha, kwa sababu kuanzia miaka 2000 kupanda juu tumetengeneza mfumo wa elimu ambao umebezi zaidi katika certificate kuliko ni maarifa. Tumepambana hilo kwa kuhakikisha kwamba tunaua midahalo vioni ili kuhakikisha kwamba watu hawafikiri mambo yaliokuwa ya msingi, na matokeo yake tumekuwa tukizalisha watu ambao hawawezi kujenga hoja ama kufikiria nje ya box. Kabla sijafika university, nilifikiria kwamba university is a place of develop idea. But matokeo yake nilipofika university, nilikuta university it is a ring to fight for the certificate, for the GPA, which is the differences. Tunategemea kwamba elimu inapaswa kuwa ni kama malighafi ya kumfinyanga jamii yoyote ili kuhakikisha kwamba wanakuwa kama vile wanavyotaka. Na hii hutengenezwa sana na sera. Sasa unapofika universities na ukakuta kuna asilimia kubwa sana ya watu ambao wana fight for the certificate, inamaanisha kwamba tunatengeneza jamii la vijana wengi sana ambao wanategemea ajira kuliko ni uhalisia. Kitendo cha mtu kufika chuoni inapaswa kupewa uhuru wa kufikiri. Na uhuru wa kufikiri hutokana na watu ambao wapo katika field, example the lecturers and the researchers. Ukija universities utakuta tafiti nyingi na lecture nyingi ambazo zinafanywa na wahadhiri wetu haziweki public. Ukiingia library huwezi kukuta tafiti nyingi ambazo zinafanywa na watu wa ndani. Matokeo yake tunaishi maisha ya kukariri kwa kusoma vitu ambavyo vimeandaliwa na watu ambao wako kwenye context ambayo ni ya nje ya field ambayo mazingira ambayo tuliyozoea. Matokeo yake tunatengeneza kizazi cha kukariri zaidi kuliko ni kuelewa. Hii inatoka mtaani, vioni paka mtaani. Tumetengeneza kikundi kikubwa sana cha vijana vioni ambao hawafikiri wala hawana uwezo wa kuhoji. Matokeo yake tumetengeneza nadharia kubwa ya uchawa kuanzia katika level za vyuo vikuu. Sasa tukitaka kurudisha academic freedom, ni lazima tuhakikishe kwamba tunarudisha midahalo na mihadhara mbalimbali vioni ambavyo itajadili masuala ya msingi ambayo yana maslahi mapana kitaifa. Kwa mfano, the issue of DP World ilikuwa ni issue sensitive sana katika masuala ya kitaifa, lakini huwezi kukuta university student organization for example Daruso wamelifanya hilo asize kama kulijadili ama kukondemn it according to yeye anavyoona mambo. Kwa nini imefikia huko? Ni kwamba tumetengeneza mazingira ya vijana ambao hawajiamini, vijana ambao wanafikiria kuhusu uchaguzi ujao kuanzia ngazi za vyuo, na matokeo yake wanaenda kuzalisha jamii ambayo kimsingi haijitambui sana katika level za mitaa. Kwa kumalizia, nitaangalia the colonization of mind pia. Ukimsoma Ngugi wa Thiong'o katika kitabu chake cha The Colonization of Mind, ameelezea zaidi aina ya ukoloni ambao tulionao sasa. Huu umepelekea sana kuziaffect tafiti na jamii yetu ambayo tunataka kukitengeneza. Ukiangalia kimsingi, kuna baada ya vyetu kupoteza ladha sana hapa, kuna kitu ambacho kimeibuka sana na kina kasi cha the scholarships ambayo inapelekea kuwatuma vijana wengi ama kuchukuliwa katika nchi ambazo za ughaibuni kwenda kusoma, lakini matokeo yake tunarudi tukiplay as the agent of nchi ambazo zilizotudhamini. Sasa kwa nini nimetumia issue of the scholarship? Tunajaribu kutengeneza jamii ambayo tunayoitaka. Kama jamii tunayoitaka, ni lazima kwamba vyuo vikuu vijirekebishe na viangalie roles, ili kama tunaona gap katika society yetu, sisi as a government play a part kuhakikisha watu ambao kesho watajua kusimamia maslahi ya taifa. Asante.
Thank you. Thank you, Aisha. I'll use maybe 2-3 minutes to try to explain for those whose Kiswahili is not very good. So Aisha was talking about, so he started talking about academic freedom, but in the context of class struggle. Not just academic freedom, but other freedoms as well, as where you have how it manifests in the class struggle, where you have the powerful suppressing the ideas and opinions of those who are less powerful in that case. And he also mentioned the Arusha Declaration, but in relation to the quality of education that we have today. And I think his point was that with the neoliberalization of education, we have produced, we are kind of producing intellectuals who are not self-confident, who have low self-esteem, who are, there's a word he used, there's a new lexicon in this discourse called chawacracy. Chawacracy. Professor Shiv is very well with these lexicons. I'll leave it to him to explain it to you later. But it basically means the politics of, how do you say? Yeah, sycophants, kind of politics. Yeah, it will come later in the course of discussion, I'm sure. So we'll get to know it better. But he was also concerned about the suppression of student activism on campus, but also lack of dissemination of research output. That a lot of research has been done, but and when you go to the library, you don't find locally kind of produced knowledge, and instead you find knowledge which has been imported, and that might not be very relevant to address some of the realities that we have in our society. So he also put an emphasis on the idea of critical thinking, and because of all these developments have really taken away this critical element in intellectual growth that students and teachers, you know, they don't think critically. And for him, this is very yes, and he made reference to Ngugi, the decolonization of the mind, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and also he touched on the politics of scholarship, where people are given scholarship to go to study somewhere outside the country, and when they come back, they become agents of those who gave them scholarships. So this is a concerning development for him. I think that is understood. That's what he wanted to communicate to you. Now I'll give the microphone to Mary Ndaro, please.
Hi. So when Dr. Shangwe called me today, I was like, oh, so I need to watch my language because I'll be talking to academicians. So I need to be really watch how I speak and appear a little bit more academic. So Dr. Shangwe talking about the issue of collective responsibility. And I kept thinking, even right here, right now, collectively in this room, we know what happens even when we imagine freedom. We know what happens. And that can be freedom to have different opinions, to express your opinions, to dress differently, to even breathe differently, and sometimes to laugh or clap your hands when it's not your turn to clap. So, with the time we're living in, even wanting freedom is dangerous. I think now if you want to be safe, don't even think. Don't think, then you're safe. Just don't think. Don't just use your brain, eat your food, know where your house is, know your address, know your location, go eat, sleep, you're fine. Nothing is going to happen to you. You will live happily ever after. Put the thinking into process, then you're done. So what we have now, we have a controlled and predefined freedom. And nobody has taken any of us in the class, but we know how it sounds like, how it looks like, and how it feels like. And we speak, even now, I know some of my Tanzanian people, in our hearts, we are like, nakuelewa Mary, nakuelewa, because we know how it feels and how it feels. There is this fear, you can't even describe it, but it's there. You know that fear when they say, why are you talking? Why are you thinking? Who is allowing you to think? Why are you thinking the way you're thinking? For what? So then you start to define your thinking and your freedom. So I know my freedom is to keep quiet, pretend that I cannot think, laugh when I really don't want to laugh, and then I'm fine. Then I'll be 70 one day. And we know the consequences of thinking and wanting freedom, that we have become our own watchdogs. So before the state, I am your watchdog. I am looking at you and I'm saying, will you shut up? What will it cost if you just keep quiet? And then you think about it and then you say, yeah, let me keep quiet. And I was talking to Halifa before I came here. I was like, are we talking about freedom or imaginary freedom? And because you mentioned the word freedom, for a moment, trying to be safe and remaining safe, let's talk about imaginary freedom. And I'm insisting the word imaginary. So don't say I talked about freedom. I'm talking about imaginary freedom. So don't go out and say I was talking about freedom. So what is freedom if you can't see what is working and what is not working? And what is freedom when you're not allowed to think? And what is freedom when there's a definition of who we are supposed to be as people and as a country? And that definition is only when you're saying yes to everything, or when you're being told to say no to everything, and then you go with that. When you only have the yes sir, yes ma'am, and then you're fine. So for now, when you're talking to people, going back to imaginary freedom, right? So we have a female president, right? So we had imaginations, right? Because we were thinking of her as our mom at home. Although we all know our moms at home are no jokes, but somehow we think moms are naturals, nice, kind, and we didn't think of her as a president, right? I am still on imaginary freedom, right, guys? So we're talking about imagination, eh? Not anything. So you start imagining that there is a sense of freedom that I'm going to have to be able to think and be free and walk free and critique. And then the real freedom kicks in and tells you, who told you? Come back to reality. You can't say I'm free if your neighbor is not free. And if you ask me, there is no freedom. But we are surviving, if you ask me. We are surviving, but we have no freedom. And you are looking into, when you're talking about freedom, let's just take one example of what has been happening in Ngorongoro, right? Just an example. What has been happening there? Who can even say anything about that? Can we even do a research? I'm among the academicians, right? Can you go to Ngorongoro and do a research? I'm talking about a research. And then come back. And then just publish that research of what is happening in Ngorongoro. Can you have a different perspective and say what is happening in Ngorongoro is wrong? Can we talk about the land that we have that keeps shrinking? Can we say we need to protect our natural resources? Can you say that? Because if you have to say that, you have to define development. And what is development? Development is when the few have everything and the rest are laboring. That's our definition of development. So when you think different, you're not thinking. You're thinking like a poor person. And being poor, I can tell you, don't try to be poor. It's really bad. Don't even try it. It's really bad to be poor. Because when you're poor, you can't think. And when you're poor, you have to scream to be listened to, and then choose what to listen to. So when Shangwe is talking about collective responsibility, towards what? What is our responsibility? Maybe let's start from there. Okay, let's say I want to join you as an academician. I'm joining you on what? What am I joining you with? On what? What are we talking about? What am I protecting with you? For example, if I say, I come from maybe women's rights or CSOs, and I want to join with media and academicians, one thing I can tell you, it will only take 3 seconds before the room is empty. There is no collectivity, because we do not define freedom the same. We define freedom guided by fear of what might happen if we define that freedom collectively. And I know, like, when you're thinking about, the previous presidents and all this, and saying that we want youth who can think, we want youth who can voice their ideas. Try that right now. Try to think and try to voice your ideas. So, and I'm taking a pause because I know I'm among academicians, so I need to choose my words very carefully. Otherwise, if I was outside, I'd just be saying anything, because I'll be just using my own language. And Halifa was talking about, missing people. But we're seeing people who are raped, molested, in the broad daylight. What do we say? We have a tendency, we wait to see, if the state is smiling, we go. If the state is not smiling, we keep quiet. We're waiting until probably when it gets into our home before we say enough is enough. We don't even trust to leave our kids alone at home, because we don't know what is going to happen. They'll be raped, they'll be molested. And then depends who molested or raped that kid. If the person with power actually raped you, they will advise you to go home, take shower. The best they can do, go to the hospital, make sure you're taking care of yourself so you don't have HIV/AIDS, no pregnancy, nothing. Go home, sleep peacefully, and forget it happened. Or they can tell, just imagine you enjoyed it. Because you cannot be free to say, I've been violated. So if you're being violated by a poor person, that's where we have different levels of freedom. If I'm violated by a poor person, I have a freedom to press charges. But if the violator is higher and mighty, don't even talk about freedom, because they will take even the slightest that you still have from you. They might even undress you in public. So, Dr. Shangwe, your topic is really interesting and it's really good. And I love that you're talking about freedom for a moment, so I can imagine about that. But I think also, and so theoretically, yes, we can talk about it. But when you're talking about theories in a real time, it's really challenging. And it's like, why am I talking about something that I know is not happening? Why? It's like me saying, I'm talking about flying a plane. It's good. I think I'll love it, but I know it will never happen. That is what is happening here. We're talking about something that we know does not exist. And the other thing is, we are talking about something that we know we cannot do anything. So we are here, I guess, to cuddle each other and tell each other it's okay, it's going to be okay. We'll be fine, don't worry. There's another tomorrow, there's another day. I guess that's what it feels like to me, that we're here to tell each other, don't worry, just stay alive, it gets better. And I hope it really does get better. And I hope these collective responsibilities, they're good words, they're really good words. But where are they? Because what you're being taught now is how to be an individual and fight as an individual. As long as you've made it, everyone else can go and, yeah, the word I wanted to use, I'm sure all of you know, right? What I wanted to use, the word I wanted to use. Like, as long as I'm fine, as long as I'm rich, as long as I'm powerful, then that's enough. Everybody else, keep praying. Your day will come. So for now, we're just in the seat. I'm just waiting for my turn. That's the current status that we're in, living, as a country. I'm waiting for my turn. And it doesn't matter who you are. Academicians, you're waiting for your turn. Because we have heard you guys saying hapa ni Jalalani. We didn't even know. I went to school, I didn't know this is Jalalani. Now we know this is Jalalani. And we came here, didn't even give us sanitizers. Na tumekuja Jalalani. Why do you think we use those kind of statements? Because we're scared. Because we know how it feels. And because we have a new definition of freedom that we know does not exist, but we still have to somehow continue to stay alive and exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Before I open the floor for the audience, you asked about why do we need to come together, and particularly a lot of questions around academic freedom, especially in the university setup. And when I was referring to the text that informs this discussion, I was talking about that the reaction or the response of the academic community to these things that are happening leaves a lot to be desired. You're talking about Ngorongoro, and in most cases, the academic community has been left behind by other actors in the media or in civil society. Even in churches and mosques, you have heard voices, prominent voices coming from those places, but you don't hear such voices coming from the university. And recently, the university has been, I would say, under attack, quote unquote, and sometimes rightly so. People have referred to this university as Form 10, as an extension of secondary school. I'm sure you're aware of that. Because of this deafening silence. And sometimes we do research, but the problem is dissemination. So someone in this university has written something about Ngorongoro, but it's in the shelves. And maybe under a paywall in Oxford University or Cambridge. So you have to pay to get access to that kind of knowledge or information. So this deafening silence from the academic community is what prompts us, actually, to have this kind of discussion. And the idea of collective action is because, I can't remember that man of God, Martin, the German, who was talking about when they came for Jews. Yeah, that guy, So everyone will be affected in one way or another. Your time maybe has not come, but it will definitely come. That's why we need to stick together. And some of you look at, for example, the legislations in this country, the Cyber Crime Act, for example, or the, Telecommunication Act and online content regulations, Those are cross-cutting. They don't just affect journalists, the Halifas, they affect academics as well. So those are the kind of the forces that work against all of us, and hence they need to come together to try to respond to. So with those few remarks, now the floor is open to you. As I said, we intend this to be a very casual discussion, and I will quickly, so that to make sure that everyone is on board, I'll quickly put out those assumptions that I put earlier, and because some of you were not here. And if we can have a discussion along those lines. So the first assumption I put out was there was greater academic freedom when this country was under one-party system in the 70s and 80s. And ironically, we don't have that kind of freedom now under a multi-party system. It's an assumption that I put out. And then another one is about that there is a shrinking civic space in this country, which has curtailed the freedoms, not just academic freedom. but also the idea that academic freedom flourishes under democracy, and therefore the struggle for academic freedom is a struggle for democracy, and vice versa. And that the academic community's response to these worrying trends that we're talking about, the abductions and the silencing of voices, people who have different opinions, the response of academic community leaves a lot to be desired. Again, it's an assumption that I put out. I want you to respond to. And the idea of having a collective action, actors, different actors coming together to respond. And there is evidence that this is not happening, and that's why we're here to try to fill that gap. So now the floor is open. Can we have someone please to pass the microphone? I will start with Professor Magimbi.
Thank you. Thank you, the Dean also. It's a very lively event. I prefer Dean to Principal. I don't know why. Maybe I'm too up-to-dated. Just a small correction I wanted to make to the gentleman who said he's our student. Not that I like to critique my own students, but this is also a scholarly discourse. When you say research reports are not available, it's simply not true. I get them for free. Read it, Professor Rekaza Mukandala. So many in my office. Problem is that we are not a reading culture. But you go to the library, you find publications, research reports by Professor Fred Kajage, Issa Shivji, Rekaza, many. So that's simply not true. We put a lot of stuff around which is not read. And then don't say that when people get scholarships, then they become puppets. Because according to your view, I am a puppet, Professor No is a puppet, Professor Rekaza Mukandala is a puppet, Professor Shivji is a puppet, Professor Mbamba is a puppet, because all of us at the point in our lives, we were sent to study somewhere in Europe or South Africa by some colonial scholarship program. So be careful, because you may be an activist, but also this is an academic forum. I'm not a puppet of anybody who sent me to study anywhere. But otherwise, when you talk about academic freedom, I would like to maybe stick to the face of Mwalimu, which we really enjoyed. I'm one of the first people to write criticisms of Mwalimu. And it's different from the other presidents, because Mwalimu was also a scholar. So you have something. There were books, articles by Mwalimu, which you could read and write a discourse, you're a critic. But otherwise, Mwalimu did not touch the campus. I can speak on his behalf. We were free to. And he used to come here also and give talks like what you have just given, you 4 people there. In fluent English. And we are very happy. So there has been some freedom. Maybe also let's look at our own side. What the last speaker was saying. Maybe the problem is also us. Apathy. We just assume that there are no certain freedoms. Freedom is not given in a silver plate. It's class struggle, Shivji. You have to grab it, play your part. But otherwise, there has been some freedom. At least it's said in the first phase, Dar es Salaam school. And Dar es Salaam was like Paris and London during the time of Karl Marx. People were running from Kampala, from Idi Amin. I remember Shivji, Nabudere, and the others, Ayash Tandon. Others were running even from Kenyatta in Kenya. Pardon? Shivji ran from Kelosa to Dar es Salaam. Yash Tandon ran from Idi Amin, not Shivji. Yeah. Maybe you ran also from Ugweno to Dar es Salaam. Okay, let me give a chance to the others also.
Thank you very much. My name is Christopher Okidi from Kampala. This is a very interesting topic to me because I was a student leader in Uganda. I was also a youth leader of the oldest political party in Uganda, which worked closely with the Chadema. And also sometime this year when President Kikwete came to Makerere to speak to former student leaders in Uganda, the statement on political parties was, I think, directed to myself because I was on the main panel and he was the chief guest. And so, but I think let me first help the young man from Professor's heat. Professor should know that Frantz Fanon was very clear. I think it was Jean-Paul Sartre in the preface to Frank Fanon's Black Skin, White Mask, who said African scholars or the African intelligentsia just echo what their Western benefactors tell them. And if that was not the case, the African Academy would not be talking about decolonization and decolonization of knowledge. So I think the very first point of academic freedom starts with honesty, by accepting, because a lot of research agendas from the West has actually misled Africa. And when the moderator talks about, when the moderator particularly talks about the failure of democracy, it could also be that maybe we were just regurgitating Western concepts of democracy. And so what we are experiencing is a complete failure of liberal democracy. If we probably had our own time or had our own space to think and think more critically, we would have designed a democracy that is working and a democracy that is not taking us back. So for me, I want to be very emphatic in supporting the young man that your point is very valid. Don't let Professor scare you. And then I also, and now coming to the panel, and to all of us who are here, democracy is never, freedom is never given to anybody. Freedom is never given. In fact, Martin Luther King says, freedom and rights never roll on the wheels of inevitability. They must be demanded. And if we also talk about the civil society space shrinking, I think I now understand the problem, because I think there has been a missing link in the academia to first of all provide leadership in terms of the civic space. And I can tell you that all these democracies that we see, Europe, it was actually the academics that led this. The Karl Marx professor is talking about left us with a very serious theory that we still talk about it today. He was a scholar. So I think scholars are actually letting down society, and scholars should actually understand that when they take up their space and begin to work for knowledge, not work for people, because there are also some scholars who are called official scholars because their role is just to explain official positions. Let scholars be true to knowledge, but not be true to power, and let them speak. And coming to the question of political parties, I was a student leader, a product of a political party. I think political parties are important, that they should exist in institutions, but because in Uganda, I think we are dealing with even a more difficult context than here, because for us we are dealing with a five-star general who is about to be field marshal, and still, as you can see me, I have my legs broken here. If President Kikwete saw me last time in Makerere, my legs were not broken when I was on the panel, but I am here at the Voice of Social Science Conference in clutches, but still I talk, because at the end of it all, we must talk our way to freedom. Thank you so much.
Commentaries. Do you have any other comment?
Thank you. I want to echo what Professor McGinley said. the Demeri sound cynical. There's actually a Kiswahili song that says the same words you say. I don't know what it's called. Ndugu yangu tizama ulipotoka. Kula ugali wako nenda ukalale. What is that? So if we look at each other and say, this is pain, this is bad, this is going on, I don't get a sense that you're an anarchist. It doesn't sound like that, because anarchists are very positive people. You sound cynical. Now, if you're cynical, why are you here? Say something that will give me hope. Say something that will make me think there is still a possibility. Say something that will make me and us make this time, make this space worth our coming here. Because you broke my heart, wallahi. So
you say it, Diana.
Me?
You say it.
No, me, I'm not cynical. I'm sort of an anarchist, but the Mary sounded very cynical. Like, we check at each other. I mean, like, we check, hey, you're fine, we are fine. Okay, you continue to struggle in silence. We continue to struggle in silence. I mean, like, you could have, I'm not saying, if it's also pathological if you're too happy about your freedoms, or if you're too happy about the struggle you're going for and romanticizing it. But tell me, why do you think your time was worth it today? And all of us here, tell me, what is it that, what is at least just one thing that you look at and say the future is promising? The rest of me, I have no problem, but really you sounded cynical, and you've broken my heart.
Okay, Mary will respond to that. Yes.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Dr. Usman Ahmed from Nigeria, Federal University, Kashere, Gombe State, Nigeria. Ideally, academic environment should be the independent and neutral environment where issues are supposed to be discussed, issues are supposed to be researched, constructively, but looking at it from the perspectives that many of us have seen it, of course, it is expected that no one should, under normal circumstances, should criticize or say what is right, looking at the situation, looking at the society, looking at what actually transpired in our society. Of course, if you trace the history of philosophers right from Plato, none of them has actually found it very easy in terms of expression of opinion, in terms of dissemination of what has been researched. Of course, it has been a struggle throughout. And even from what you have said, in the 70s, in the 60s, we know in Nigeria, people like Bala Usman, people like Claude Ake, many of them that we know. Of course, these people have really fought it, they have really struggled, they have really researched out, even though some of them will actually find the outcome of what they have researched, important. But of course, at times, publishing it out or disseminating it is a problem. So, the diminishing factors or what tends to affect this struggle and, of course, publishing what has been researched by the academics, of course, we have to relate it to the neoliberal system, democracy, because many, if we look at it from the history, that what is happening today, that many people from the university who used to voice out, of course, they can easily be co-opted by the government. When you are in an academic environment, you speak, you voice out. Once you are given appointment by the government, you keep quiet. These are some of the factors that affect some of this freedom. But of course, we look at it from the degree. As an academics, you have right to research, you have right to express. That is academic freedom. right to express your opinion, right to research, right to investigate, right to, of course, participate at the community level, of course, social responsibility that you are mentioning. But the major problem and the diminishing factors that we are experiencing today is, of course, has to do with the system. Of course, the current system of democracy, of course, is really, really killing the morale, and is also really affecting the rate at which the academics, of course, voice out today. These are very, very important. And if you look at the particularly contemporary African societies today, of course, we are seriously lagging behind in terms of expression, in terms of coming out to voice out, the social problems, because it has to do with the issue of the class. The political class are there to, of course, ensure that, yes, you don't criticize them, of course. So they will do everything, devise every means of course, stopping, these publications, these information disseminations, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the problems I think we are experiencing today as regards to the diminishing, of course, factors that have to do with exercise of academic freedom. So academic freedom is different. Of course, disseminating the information is also another. Of course, many people can research, but they hide it. They hide it because they are scared of bringing it out because of the consequences, due to either political factors or other factors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before I proceed and before I forget, I have a question for Kamata, because Kamata is one of the authors of Mwalimu Nyerere's biography, and Mwalimu Nyerere's name is coming up in relation to democracy, the question around democracy. What is democracy? And in one of his speeches, in one of his sound bites that go viral online, when he was talking about, he said, we don't fight about democracy. There's no conflicting ideas about democracy. We fight about, or we disagree on trivial things, but not the fundamentals of democracy. And he talked about, you can't say you have, if you're talking about the country's development, you can't talk about development if you have people knocking on your door at night and you're scared. And so in relation to the question of what is democracy, and this Mwalimu Nyerere's views about democracy, I want you to respond to that so that we get some kind of clarity on the idea of democracy. Not now, not necessarily now. Oh, okay, you can just...
I'm not sure about that. If I will be able to respond directly to that question. But since you have provoked me, I would like to share some ideas on some of the issues which have already been touched by some of the speakers. And the first question when Arifa was talking to me was what has happened, whether it's democracy, whether it's academic freedom. What has exactly happened? Because I've been to this university long enough now, not longer as a Shivji and Magimbi, but I think I've been here long enough. And I have been involved in many struggles at the universities. And one thing I want to say, when I came here as a student, students could freely organize. 90s, in 2000s, they could still organize. Staff could organize. They will spend days debating about their affairs. And sometimes they will link their problems with the larger problems of the society. So they could discuss. And the university management sometimes it didn't like, probably more often than not, it didn't like, but students and staff could organize. So what happened? That students cannot organize and staff cannot organize. I was involved in some protests. They were more in 60s and probably in the 80s. 60s, 70s, there were more protests, students' protests. There were fewer in the 19s. But there were protests, and I was involved in some of them. We were free to march, of course, not free in the sense that you will not meet the police. Okay? But regardless, we marched to the city. Up to the year 2005, I think, students could still organize, they could challenge the cost sharing, etc. And then what happened after 2005, I think, from around that time, 2005-06 to 2014, I think there have been a systematic, I don't know how to define it, ways of controlling. If you say the university is important, then there has been a conscious, well-schemed, systematic, project of silencing and controlling the university. And it has been successful, I would say. Very, very successful. Staffs are quiet, silenced. Students are silent. So, I don't know what has happened. This is something that we need to reflect. But not only, you have been asking this question. In the 90s, civil society, the emerging civil society, NGOs, etc., they could organize protests. Some of them, I remember, were their protests against the IMF. They could do that. And it was neoliberalism starting under Mkapa, under Kikwete. So what is, and I'm talking about 2000, and after 2005, Kikwete comes in power, gets the second term, and I think from 2010 things become the state is behaving differently. And I want to say, state starts being violent. And I'm saying this, maybe you'll not remember, journalists, students, leaders are abducted. The first incident was a student leader, Muhimbili. He was abducted, he disappeared for some, it started here actually in 1990. Mkenda disappeared. I don't know, the Minister of Education. He's the Minister of Education today. He disappeared for some weeks. But the important thing, if he would have disappeared today, he probably would have disappeared forever. But then it was not possible because students will not sleep. They asked, where is our president? They will not go to classes. They will say, where is our president? And it was not democratic. You say democratic. Tanzania was not that much democratic. It was still an authoritarian regime. But yet, there was a space for people to organize and protest. So what has happened? Where you're asking about solidarity? What has happened to the solidarity that we as students here and staff will express our feelings, will express our solidarity, not only with other students here, but whatever was happening elsewhere in terms of oppression, in terms of victimization of students and other people in the continent. Not anymore. And I was asking my students that if you don't care about your neighbor, what's happening to your neighbor, you can care about anything else. So anyway, so I don't know. I think I'm also answering your question of democracy. So maybe I should. I'm just posing this question: why? What has happened? Solidarity within the university, solidarity between the university and the larger society. You're talking about. She's talking about classrooms. And I think I would want to finish with that. Our class is a democratic space. If they are not, can we talk about democracy elsewhere? If staff, academic staff, are like bosses and they behave like military. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you. My name is Melkisedek Ajage. I am from Dodoma. I am trying to contribute to what Dr. Kamata is raising, that in his experience in 90s and 20s, the academia was very vibrant and strong. And so to me, I think this was not a coincidence. It was planned, bearing the timing that by then we were in the transition period, and there was a tendency where now the government or the system or whatever you can call it was trying to appease and please the donors that we are ready to liberalize. We are ready to liberalize, but inwardly they were not committed and they were not ready in reality, of course. So as time went on, it reached the time when the government now saw that the donors are already in for it. The flow of aid and whatever is already institutionalized to that extent, and therefore it is high time whereby there is a Swahili saying, they say, asiri haipotei. We are not ready to embrace academic freedom, which is, of course, to me, part and parcel of liberalism. We are not ready. And therefore that comes now the chance when the academia is maneuvered and manipulated in all ways by the government and by the system. And there is nothing we can do about it. And why is that so? Why is that the case? Why is it that the academia is ready to be maneuvered and manipulated by the government? It is because most of us do not take the academia as a vocational profession. This is a vocation. Academia ni wito. It comes with sacrifices. And which kind of sacrifice I'm talking about? The sacrifice that you will go out, call out the fieldwork, research, and disseminate the findings the way they are, without fearing of whatever the interpretations and the perceptions that will come out of those findings. So to me, I think the way to go about this, to revive that kind of academic freedom, is for us academics to take this academia as a vocation, something that comes with the sacrifices. Because the state or the system is very, very, very much clever in manipulating us. They will even go to the extent of allocating government consultancies to the people they think they are political cadres. They do that. Sasa, if you not take yourself as someone who is in a profession that demands a great deal of vocation, then you will be in for it. They will maneuver us in any way. They provide government consultancies to the people they think they are already in the system. Someone was telling me, Kajage, if you want to criticize the government, you need to be in the system. That's how can I criticize the government while I am in the system? And I said, no, when you are in the system, they will not take you like someone who is opposing the government. To be safe, you have to criticize the government while you are in the system, but not outside. Otherwise, you will be labeled a rebellion, someone who is against the government, whatever name. They will name you everything. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to go back to Kamata when he was talking about, was questioning the idea of having a culture of democracy on campus, like democratic culture on campus. But particularly when it comes to relationships, like say between lecturers and students. There are a lot of complaints. The other time we sat in this room, we had a colloquium on academic freedom, and that thing came up where students would accuse lecturers of being I would say, okay, I'll be nice and say not very democratic. But also a lot of talk around issues of maybe abuse is such a big word, but I'll use it regardless. Issues of so you have professors and lecturers going to class and basically. And they're called course instructors, and they really instruct. They don't listen, you know. they are what they do is to give instructions, and they're not ready to get feedback. And we have had cases where, and because of there is no that democratic culture, sometimes you really have to pay attention to hear these voices. Otherwise, you'll never hear them. But if you ask students in informal sense, they have a lot of stories about. So I think it's a very fundamental question whether. We're talking about freedom, academic freedom. Particularly, we point fingers at these forces outside the campus. But what about the situation inside the campus? Do we need rescuing from other like-minded forces, like from the media or from the civil society, to come and help us to you know, to yes, Professor Kajagi.
Thank you very much indeed. Actually, I'm glad that that issue has been brought up, starting with Dr. Kamata and then you. And all the time I've been listening, I really wanted to change the angle of focus because it's easier to excoriate the state for curtailing our freedoms. Not only civic, narrowing civic space, but freedom of self-expression, academic freedom, and all that. I think that it is possible that academics could be, we are our own worst enemies. And if we don't fix that, we do not have the moral high ground on which to stand and criticize those who are infringing on our academic freedom, our freedom to express ourselves, to publish ideas. I think the classroom is a very important arena. We can even take it as a laboratory, right, for the exercise of freedom to think. And I think the problem is the instruction culture or the academic culture, starting from the classrooms in schools system up to the university. Because so long as we do not cultivate the freedom to think from the very early age, then the project of creating academic freedom cannot succeed. I get very frustrated in my own classroom. When I go to class, I want my graduate students to express themselves, to critique the literature that I give them to read. And you don't get a response, not because they are stupid, but because they have been brought up in an environment where the sharing of knowledge is top down. Not encouraging feedback, freedom to differ. If we don't fix that, then I think we have no right to criticize those who infringe upon our own freedom to think or to express our ideas. It's just amplifying an idea that has already been brought up, because I've been urging to intervene on that idea. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take a few comments and then I'll get back to our discussants if they have something to respond to. Quickly, can we, because we're running out of time, can you be as precise as possible?
Okay, thank you. My name is Aaron Mayala. I'm from the Department of Geography. Now, from the talks of academic freedom, I mean, we are taking sides and we have assigned values to the assumption of academic freedom, mainly a liberal academic freedom, because there's an assumption that academic freedom flourishes in democracy, and the struggle for academic freedom is the struggle for democracy. But I think even in fascist states, there were academics who flourished during those regimes, and they were favored by the state. My point is, when we talk of academic freedom, we should not take sides and assign values to the concept of academic freedom. For example, if I am a pro-state scholar, that I say the state should, by any means, maintain its power, I mean, I would not be popular in this room, because I might be saying something that is not aligning with the idea of academic freedom as we know it. But as a scholar, I should be free even to express my ideas, even if they are not popular with the values of democracy. For example, if I say right now that if the state is, let's say, minimizing freedom of speech, I say it's okay. The state should have all the power within its territory. But in that context, I might be unpopular, and in that context, my academic freedom would be deprived. For example, we all know that we also assign labels to that. This scholar is pro-state, this scholar is a puppet, this scholar is working for democracy. I think if we go beyond those labels, that there is a good academic freedom in liberals, and then there is a bad academic freedom for some scholars who are not pro-liberal, then I think at that point we can have academic freedom. But otherwise, just assume this. For example, right now we are saying that the current government is not allowing freedoms. But if I am a pro-state scholar, I enjoy that. But if there was a liberal president who allow every freedom and I am a pro-state scholar, my freedoms would be deprived, right? So I think we should try to deconceptualize this freedom, this concept, to make it inclusive to all kinds of scholars, regardless of their views. Thank you.
Before I go, there's a very important point that you're raising there. So I think the idea of academic freedom is okay to have pro-state or pro-government scholars. I think what we're saying is not to persecute those who are not considered to be pro-state or pro-government. That is also okay to have this other group of, say, scholars who can be critical of the government and shouldn't be harassed just because they're critical of the government. But also there's an element of, and this has to do with the society, because, for example, he was talking about if he's pro-state and he announced himself as a pro-state scholar, he wouldn't be popular in this room. That's not a popular position. So there is because of that, now I want to take that notion outside this room, where you go out there and you're scared to say something because you're scared of the reaction from the society, right? That also infringes freedom, and it leads to self-censorship, because you might say something which is against so-called values, societal values, and therefore you are scared. You want to say something, but you end up not saying it because you're scared of the reaction, and it's not considered to be falling under the norms and values of that particular society. Yes, there was a hand, Talema.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Dr. Lema from the Department of Geography. And I have two questions actually in this discussion. And I'll try to give also my opinion. The first thing is that if I look at the coverage that we are trying to make, you can sense that there is a fear around. And even you look at the historical analysis, what happens in the 60s, in the 70s and 80s, and now, it is like things have changed, and that we have nothing to do about it, but in other sides, we have something to do. So to me, I want us to be able to locate where is the fear coming from. And I think this is very important because if you read any literature, daring is very important, regardless of the obstacle that you face. And I'm talking about this because I learned about apartheid is a crime against humanity while I was in primary school. And by that time, I think Mandela were struggling to find independence for the South Africa. So this was taught in primary school, in early years of grade 1, grade 2. So what I'm saying that I echo what Professor, a renowned history professor said, that if we don't know that we are the source of this fear, we academics will not be able to solve it. But if you agree that we are the source, we are the part, we are at the center of this problem, we are the source actually. And so we are the change that we are looking for. And to me, I will not point fingers to any, because currently we need collective efforts. And that's why I recite the apartheid against humanity being taught at grade 1 in primary school when Nyerere was organizing, and we are at that time actually, the time I'm referring to, Nyerere was not a president. It was the Mwinyi's time. But we are preaching the same song with the South African.
Dr. Lema,
And
can you...
so what I'm inviting, we academics, we have to be responsible. And we are able to fix this problem if we become sincere and apply our heart on what we are doing. We avoid to be superficial academicians. But the second thing for the young people, I'm emphasizing, Nyerere entered in the politics at the age of 30s. So I'm talking about the relationship between the elderly and the young people. The young people should stop dependence. Do not depend on the elderly for new ideas. Like, for example, I see the voting culture. If we talk about changing Tanzania, changing the academics, why are the young people not taking their part, their front seat? In very small things, at the age of 18, you have the voting power in politics. Are you participating in the local government elections? If you register yourself to vote, even if you think that the votes can be manipulated, but you counted, your vote will be counted. Even if it is not counted, I'm a geographer. You cannot hide the vote. If you vote yes, it will remain yes. Even if the electoral commissions wrote it somewhere differently, the truth will stand for itself. So I'm encouraging people, we stop fearing and we develop hope. And we should also appreciate the little that we have. That's why I say that's the change we want. We are the source and the power is in us.
That will make Diana happy. Diana, you here? She left. And Dr. Lema, you look pretty young yourself, so you are talking to yourself, right? Celestine? So maybe two more comments, quickly. 2 or 3. I'll start with Celestine.
Okay, thank you. My name is Celestine Christian Matova. I'm a postgraduate student. I will comment on the first assumption of Dr. Shangwe, which said that academic freedom was present during the first regime of the single-party regime. Maybe we can see that during the first regime and the current regime, the nature of the state, the first regime also was somewhat socialist. It was some sort of a welfare state, contrary to the post-1985 state, which was somewhat liberalized. During the first regime, it's known that education was free. The students here weren't stressed with things like the tuition fee. The meals were provided freely, they say. Inverse to the current student. Right now, in these 3 days, the amount of students, it was little. Why? The current student right now, he or she is stressed about education, the tuition fee, economics, food, transport. In contrary to the first regime or the single-party state, the state was some sort of a socialist. So I think it boils down to the socialist versus liberalism. And this, apart from affecting students, it affects even the scholars. Okay, a scholar, where does he get funds? The funds come from what? From these labor institutions. For instance, UDism, there's a current project from the World Bank, HIT. I don't know, these guys, I'm sure they usually come with their conditionalities. They should, okay, we'll check your curriculums and whatnot. Yes, so, yeah, did that. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Idi Magot from History Department. I will start with what Dr. Lema said, that we need to dare do something. Dare do something. One of a criteria which have maintained me to be here is the freedom I have to do what I want at this campus as compared to other agencies outside and the other public institutions, because we have a kind of freedom. But things have changed. And the age of collectivism has ended, and now we are in the age of individualism. And when I was in secondary school, we read 2 prominent novels. One is by Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart. The other one is by Henrik Ibsen, An Enemy of the People. So if you read a novel by Achebe, Things Fall Apart, Okonkwo, one of the main characters in the novel, he said, they have put a sword in our community and the things are falling apart. If you read Henrik Ibsen's novel, An Enemy of the People, the enemy of the people is the people themselves. So our enemy is we here, academicians. We are lamenting, protesting. We don't have freedom. What action have we taken to demand our freedom? What action? We have seen a sword coming to our institution slowly, snatching the power of the university by taking some clause of the university charter. What action did we take? We have seen the government controlling now. We have a kind of autonomy somewhere. Now the autonomy, the university is centralized like other government institutions. And we are told everything, including an animal which I am hating very much nowadays, peppermint. We are also assessed like other institutions while we could have our own mechanism of assessing our own performance. What action have we taken? So my word, I don't want to talk much because there are a lot of histories in this. And we have senior scholars here. I can see my VC, the former VC is here. They know what happened. The professors and here, they know. I remember one in 2005, I think 2003, as Kamata said, I was here as an undergraduate student. And then it was when the Rountable bill was passed. The bill was passed. It was sent a message, I think, through Daruso. I don't know, I can't recall very well. And abruptly we got a message, there is a bill going to the parliament. And some of us were very clever from law school, the faculty of law. They said there are clauses in this bill which are not good to us. So we protested. I remember we started marching from here down to Mulimani City. Before crossing the main road, Samjoma Road, we met the police. And when we came back to the campus, there was an ultimatum over there on the board, departing back to your home within 8 hours. It was 16 hours by then, you have to depart. I remember things were there, but the age of collectivism have ended. And there are histories on this, for example. Why students are not protesting today? Previously, the government could give loan 100% to all students who were enrolled to government institutions. Today, we are divided. You get 10%, me, I get 50%, the other one gets 100%. Why should you convince me to protest while I have 100% and you have 10%? It is, go to hell yourself. So we are divided, but this division cannot make us fear. As Lema have said, let us throw away the fear and dare to take actions. And it is possible. It is possible. I think it is possible. I have not heard where a professor has been arrested by learning a public lecture talking about what is happening in the site and so on. What action did we take when the deep world was discussed? There are several issues in the zone. We hear in the medias and whatever, but what action are we taking as scholars? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was powerful at the end of our discussion. Okay, so we started late, for like 25 minutes late. So I had to make time for that lost time. And because we have a treat for you after this, so I believe because of that you'll bear with us a little bit. Once we get out of here, it will be fun. So please bear with us. So I'll take one more comment because I see this. Yes, I'll take, you'll be the last speaker for this particular session.
Okay, thank you. My name is Moka Hassan. I am a student of the University of Dar es Salaam. And I'm very grateful to join in this discussion. We are talking about academic freedom. But to me, I think we cannot have such a freedom while our education system is not free. It does not mean the free of charge. It means to allow students to argue, to write their views in examination. I just wonder at this level of the university, professors and doctors have the marking guide. What does it mean? It means even our education itself, it is not free. I went through the education system of Sweden. I studied the education system of Sweden. Students at the lower level, they do not be taught about democracy. They live with it. I went through the examination of Sweden in physics, biology, English, and see how they constructed the examination. They give room students to speak their views on a certain issues. But here the question is if A is A. And then we duplicate issues. We produce Professor Mukandala of Professor Mukandala, Professor Mukandala. What is said about Professor Mukandala is true until then I don't think if we can have such freedom, whereas our education is not what? Free. Can't you make someone to be gender sensitive while in primary the result of the result of examination, boys' names start first, and at the last, girls. Also, girls wear skirts, where boys wear exactly. Also, in terms of toilets, there is boy, girl. Where they sit, boys start. And then at this stage, you say that, let's be gender sensitive. How? So to me, we cannot be free, whereas the foundation itself, it is not what? It is not free. And that's why in Sweden, students do not be taught democracy. They live with. Yesterday, I was talking with my friend there. Our education system is not good at all. And I see the HIT project that we have we should have the new curriculum. But I hope the curriculum will be the same and it will produce academicians who are not free actually. For example, in our education system, in primary level, we are given a break. A break, it has been translated, go and eat, come into class. But in Sweden, that's in China, a break is to go and to do what you like at the 20 to 40 minutes, then you come back to what? To class freshly. And you can see this has produced even in our family. We eat at the same, in the same timetable of the what? School. Even here at the university, the same. In morning, you will see at 10, students are going to cafeteria. And afternoon, they go to what? Even in our families. So, in order to be free, let's make also our education to be what? Free. And that's why we do not have even theories here in Africa. Theories are few. When we do our dissertation, we always use what? Theories from the outside. But another thing is, and this is very important, you academician, you are taking our updated information to publish to strong journal, which is a strong journal, Sevilla and so on. But them, they are giving us outdated information. In a class, we are learning, we are getting articles which are outdated, 1970. But one day I was talking to Professor from archaeology. He is a good publisher. He is now associate professor. And I asked him, Nchumbaki, I asked him, you always publish. How many students read your articles? They are found in what? So if we want to promote our professors, they have to write books which will be also used in what? In class. That will be our system. So we have been colonized that in order to be promoted, then you have to publish. And where you publish, we students, we cannot access those information. And they are updated information. Thank you.
That was proper closing. Well, it's not closing remarks, but sounds like closing remarks. Okay, so I'll give the microphone to our speakers if they have anything to respond to quickly, maybe 2 minutes each, and then we'll break for fun time.
I think it works. I think everything has been said already. But I wanted to, at least from my end, to finish on 2 points. So the first point, and actually it has been popping when people were discussing, this notion. And actually it's not just happening here in the room, but also outside. Like, why aren't Tanzanians protesting? Why are these people lazy? These wajinga. How do they agree to be treated like this? There's so much of that. I mean, even if you go on social media, for example, there's a pretty much of that, like how are we Tanzanians doing this? And I think, from my perspective, that's very wrong, because we take a judgmental position. We feel like we know better, like we know what should be done, like we are very smart, we are very wise, we are very daring, and every other person is just as stupid. They don't know what they want, and if you adopt that approach, I think it's not going to help anything. So I like the question that Dr. Kamata posed, like what is happening? And I think that's just fair, because it allows you room to understand, to learn, and that also informs any kind of intervention that you might want to take. That's one. But two, and also it occurred on several occasions. Actually, first from my fellow panelist here, Mary, my very dear sister, like the kind of
country, we have a lot of hanging fruits. So kibao is being killed, and then they say, polisi itashughulikia. That's a hanging fruit. We go to sleep. Has anything been done up to now? We lose people, and then they give us hanging fruit. I will deal with that. Is there anything that is happening? So I'm not good at giving hanging fruits because I've received a lot of hanging fruits, and I'm still haven't received anything. When we're talking about systems, structures, we cannot be talking about hanging fruits. So we need to change the system and the structures that we have if we have to see meaningful changes. So I am not here to give hope, because this same hope is the reason we are where we are today. Because we are always hopeful that things will get better. And because we are hopeful, we don't do anything, waiting for things to get better. And the other thing, and I'm so glad Dr. Kamata said at least 2004, kurudi nyuma was fine, because I'm on that era. Ningekuwa kwenye hii nyingine ningesikitika sana. Kwa sababu sio sehemu ambayo nataka kuwepo ya ukimya na nini. And there is a question of how did you reach here? I think it's only us, the people, that didn't know that this was going to happen. But the machinery knew, and because they know us. Sometimes I always ask myself on how we got our independence. I don't mean I wanted all of us to die for the country to get our freedom. But I'm like, guys, I want to believe it was Nyerere and the other men. They met in the room with the white people, and then they said, we're giving you freedom because, it's enough. Now we're giving you freedom. Nyerere came out and said, by the way, now we are free. We don't even know what they discussed. That's where the culture of not questioning what I always believe started from. Because we didn't even ask Nyerere, okay, we are free. What did you guys discuss? What are we giving up? What are we getting? And then we came, fikra za mwenyekiti, zidum fikra za mwenyekiti. Zidum fikra za mwenyekiti is like when a leader says they have done, they're finished. And that's why even in our homes, when parents speak, children are not supposed to ask questions. And I think we need to rethink. And I love Enzia Ujamaa, and I love Nyerere, but also that thinking of, I have said, so it is true, now has been manipulated. Is now what I want is what is going to happen. And we really need as a country to go back to the drawing board and then really rethink of what we want to do and how do we define ourselves as a country. Because for now, if you ask me, we are a soulless country. We have no soul at all. We are so okay to just find people dead in the street, and we still go back home and we sleep. We are so okay to see children being molested and raped. We are so okay, and sometimes we celebrate. We see women being raped. The first question we ask, how was she dressed? Was she drunk? Why did you go to his room? As if it's illegal to go to a man's room. Why? Because violence is something that we normalize until when it catches all of us. And I think now is a perfect time because we are all dancing the same tune. And really, I just want to keep breaking your heart. And I think I'll come back here to study on how to break more hearts, right? We need to keep breaking our hearts until when we get it, because up to now, we have lost it. And we really need to be angry that we are where we are right now as a country. If you're not angry enough that we're where we are as a country, then I think we have even lost it more than I think. So natamani ningekuwa na hope, but the only hope ni kwamba we are Tanzanian. The country is bigger than us. We have a beautiful country, and things somehow, I don't want to say miraculously, because then tabi niende kwenye madhabahu sijui, but I think let's keep breaking each other's heart until we get it. So when someone breaks your heart, try to survive, stay alive, so you can also break someone's heart. Let's keep breaking each other's heart until when we get it as a country collectively, because so far, we really have not reached that point. Asante.
Well, what more can I say? Okay, let me just say, I don't usually speak to the media, but when they call me sometimes and they ask me questions that I'm not very conversant about, I usually refer them maybe to someone who is more, and they always come back to me like they refused, And we have even colleagues who speak to you when they see you in the media, say, like, discourage you, like, why are you doing that? Don't expose yourself, Sometimes out of love, because they love you, They don't want you to get in trouble. but sometimes is out of apathy, you know. And this is a very strong point that came out from this discussion. The level of apathy on campus is astonishing. And part of the things that we need to do is to have platforms like this, and to have people coming from outside the campus, you know, to spark something and you know, try to make something happen in this case. And so this is one of the platforms that we are, thanks to the College of Social Sciences, that the VSCS is one of that platform that brings us together to discuss some of the prominent issues that are facing our society, our country, our region, in Africa, and the world at large. So we have this idea of one thing that I didn't mention in my introduction was that the ongoing struggle for academic freedom is an attempt to reclaim past glory. Professor Magimbe was talking about how free they were back then. So part of the story is to reclaim that past glory and reclaim the social science space in the discourse about development, whether it's politics or it's, you know. So VSS is part of that initiative, but there are other initiatives happening in the college. We have what we call course seminar series where anyone is invited, including people from outside the campus. As part of the infringing academic freedom which is going on campus, there is a vetting process. If you bring someone to speak on campus, they have to go through a vetting process. You have to, ideally or legally in this case, you have to explain who is this person, what is he coming to, what's the topic of discussion. So there's a vetting process. But there is resistance. We have managed to resist that. I don't know if I'll be in trouble, but I have invited people to talk to my students without going through that process. So we need this kind of platform that bring us together and share these ideas about these crucial matters that are facing our, not just the campus, but also, yeah. Without further ado, I don't want to tire you more. You already look tired, sorry. So we are going to break for networking event. So get yourself ready for some mbuzi choma, nyama choma, and wine, and soda, and water. So from here, we'll be heading